I'm Jim Kircher. We first came to the Twillman House here in Spanish Lake, maybe 10 years ago. We were doing a series of stories about historic homes in the region. They all had a couple of things in common: high cost of restoration and upkeep, and a group of dedicated volunteers. This place, they had that and more. They had big plans, they had some doubts, and they didn't have nearly enough money. You should see what they've done since then. But before we do, let's go back and see how they started.
It was built about 1870, as best we can determine, and it was built by Heinrich Johann Twillman.
It was back in September of 2007 when Dora Janulaitis showed us around an old brick building that had started out as a farmhouse and stayed as a family home well into the 20th century. In more recent times, it had been better known as home to a restaurant specializing in fried chicken. The community group she was leading had just purchased the house, but they didn't want to make a museum. They wanted a community center for a community that really needed a center, that unincorporated area of North County called Spanish Lake.
And how did it come about that you wanted to save it and turn it into something?
Well, we've had our eye on this building really from the beginning of the Spanish Lake Community Association. Since we're unincorporated, our government's in Clayton, and we felt that we needed a building for residents to come together, meet.
Must have been a lot of doubters, though, and probably still are.
I think there still are.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, this is going to happen. Believe me.
I do believe it. Do you remember what you were thinking at that time?
I was thinking that we had bought the building, right?
Yeah.
And that I had been told it would probably cost a couple $100,000 to renovate and get it up to snuff, and I said, I think I can do that. And here we are 10 years later, and it costs quite a bit more than that.
They figure maybe $1 million more than that, but that's an estimate. There were grants, but there was a lot of material and labor that they didn't have to pay for.
Things that had been donated, we had a lot of donated labor from unions in the early days. It was wonderful. I mean, our gorgeous red roof didn't cost us anything. And that was about a $35,000, $45,000, $50,000 job.
Jack Olson was the project manager. Robert Edmonds was the architect, both of them unpaid volunteers who helped transform this old house. And I remember Dora took me into this area, and it was just a mess. I could not picture what was going to happen in here.
Well, this was probably the dishwashing area and things like that, so the floors were wet all the time, and they had brought it out, and they tried to patch them periodically, which didn't really work. So, and the floor joists were eventually rotted out too. So
this was originally an exterior wall?
What it is, this area right here was an outside porch, and with a stair that went up to the second floor porch. This room and that room and the rooms on the second floor were all accessed off that porch.
But that's long gone. An addition was put on the house years ago, and this project was never about bringing back the original house. It was about making it useful for a new purpose, a community center. So they built a new back porch that can be used for outside activities. And inside, they had to bring it up to code with 2 new staircases and an elevator for full accessibility. In case you were wondering why all of this cost so much.
So this would have been the size of one of the original rooms right here.
The floor plan's been changed. There are now rooms for meetings, gatherings, offices, maybe some weddings. But there are a few signs still of the old historic Twillman House. There's some original woodwork, floorboards that were uncovered and refinished, and a new old front door. The restaurant owners had cut out the top panel of the door and put in glass. And this is pretty close to the original door.
I had pictures of the original door before the restaurant had screwed it up.
Right. Well,
we had some of the original molding on the door too, so we matched that.
Nice. They have a lot to be proud of in Spanish Lake. When we were there, they had just received the occupancy permit, and they had a good lead on a community organization that could be a long-term paying tenant. Because now that the house is all fixed up, they have to have money to operate, to be an active, sustainable Spanish Lake Community Center.
I'd like to see it well used and kept, well kept, because it is a beautiful building and it's an historic building.
So the challenges aren't over here.
Heck no. I think they're probably just beginning.